Are you ready? Hey. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another edition of the Politics program. My name is Justin Robert Young. Man, we got a crazy week. Where to start? So, I mean, I guess there's really nowhere else that we should start until we go to Vegas. If you are living under a rock, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. We're going to talk about Rex Tillerson reportedly calling Donald Trump a fucking moron. We're going to update our list of rich people who want to run for president. We are going to talk about the increasing civil war going on with Republicans. And then, of course, we are going to talk about Catalan. Nobody else gives you the international opinion the way that this show does, and we're going to talk just a little bit about the independence drive for Catalan. Spoiler alert, Europe's getting frisky. I like it. I like that. I like it. But before we start with the silliness, let's get to the sour. Vegas, Sunday. A man gets a high roller suite in the Mandalay Bay. He is equipped with a arsenal of weapons. Uses a modification on a semi-automatic weapon and sprays bullets into a crowd at an outdoor music festival, the Route 91 Country Music Festival outside of the MGM. This is horrifying. I mean, there's just no two ways to say it. We're going to spend the majority of our conversation when it comes to this and the letters that came in about it, talking about the political fallout. But let me just very briefly up top send out not only all of my condolences to the families and the friends of everybody that was affected. A lot of people who listen to this show or know me only from this show might not know my history in the internet game. But I really got my start on the internet in terms of blogging and podcasting, covering Magic. Ta-da, not The Gathering. And if you cover Magic, then you cover people in Las Vegas. It is a huge magician community. And so I know a lot of people that live in Vegas, and it has always represented a little something different to me than just the vacation destination. And boy, howdy, is it an amazing vacation destination. But it's always kind of shocked me how much it's a small town. Outside of the Strip, you effectively have a very small community. And it's kind of fascinating when you read books about the people that built modern Vegas, not necessarily the mob, but those that created gigantic businesses out of it, the Steve Wynn's of the world. Bob Goodman, I believe, is another one. That when you read about these stories of these guys that built these gigantic empires out there in the desert, that so much of their squabbles, their clashes of the titans are done over, like, you didn't bid enough on my son's clay pot at the silent auction at the elementary school. It's stuff like that. Small town stuff. So we might look at Las Vegas and think of it as a major city, but this is a lot more like something that happened in a much smaller area. And not only is it something that happened in a much smaller area and therefore people are more affected by it who are surrounded, but it's also their livelihood. I mean, Las Vegas, in addition to being a small town, is a factory town. You know, a tremendous amount of everybody's revenue is driven by strip traffic because of events like the Route 91 Outdoor Country Music Festival. People come in, they buy rooms. I mean, hell, we were just in Las Vegas the week before, and you can go on my wife's Twitch feed, and you can find a brunch stream that me and her did in the Mandalay Bay, where this fucking lunatic eventually wound up shooting people up. And I'm not trying to say, here's my connection to it or whatever. All I'm saying is this. The Mandalay Bay right now is a ghost town. And who would fucking blame it? But at the same time, if it remains a ghost town, then a lot of people get fired. A lot of people in a small town get fired. This is a tremendous tragedy on so many levels. First and foremost on the lives lost. Secondarily on the meta issues that we're going to talk about in terms of gun control in America. But tertiarily, and I think something that will continue to be an issue, is the fact that I hope that this doesn't scare people off in Vegas. And I don't think it will, but I hope not. So I believe the writer Steve Friess, Friess, has been writing stuff for New York Magazine. And the first piece that he wrote was, "This is the terror attack that Las Vegas has been girding for since 9/11." And I don't doubt that. They have long thought that Sin City, the apex of American excess, would be a target for Islamic terrorism. Turns out the terror was 90 miles north. Something else that you are not going to hear me say on this show or any coverage is the name of the shooter. I don't think it's important to say his name. I don't care to glorify him. He's a piece of human garbage, regardless of his motivations. I will not say his name. To say his name gives him power. I understand why certain news outlets need to do it. But guess what? I'm an asshole with a podcast, and I do not have such pressing concerns. All right. That's that. That's everything up top. Let's talk about some of the political fallout from this. Obviously, as soon as there is any kind of gun massacre of this scale, we are going to have a conversation about guns. And I think we should. Makes sense. A lot of what some people, and we're going to get into more of this conversation in the emails, but what people tweeted me or sent me privately was the question of how this should be politicized. And on my Facebook, which you can follow me, Justin Robert Young on Facebook, new page incoming this week. I collected all the monologues from all the late night shows and news outlets and stuff like that. Predictably, everything kind of fell into two camps. There was the liberal camp, which is now, by the way, dominated by comedians. Rachel Maddow has got to be sitting at her desk saying, like, what about me? I'm supposed to be the brainiac liberal here. You know, if anybody should have a stirring monologue about a national tragedy for which I have a very cogent and important political opinion to get to, it should be me. No, it's the man show. It's Jimmy Kimmel. It's carpool karaoke guy. I mean, I guess Trevor Noah kind of straddles that line because he spends so much time talking about politics anyway with The Daily Show. But, you know, it's weird. It's weird how much that space right now is dominated by the Colbert, Kimmel kind of space. So on the right, on the conservative side, everything was about how this is a tragedy, and boy, could those liberals not wait until the corpses were cold before they started pouring onto this politically. So let's kind of start with this fairly pedantically. I don't care when this is politicized. We like to think of politics as this weird formal dance, you know? But really, a representative democracy for which representatives of Democratic constituents yell at each other and debate and create laws is about the feelings of the people, not necessarily the will of when these politicians want to talk. So you can think that things are being crassly communicated. That's fully within anybody's right. But I don't think that there is a limit on when things should be talked about necessarily. Like, the argument should not be you shouldn't have said that. It should be what you said is offensive to me. Now, let me also say this. When you're watching those monologues, as I did, it becomes very, very clear that literally nothing's going to get done. Because nobody is even close to coming up with any kind of conversation that is anywhere close to productive at all. Like, the left is like, the blood is on your hands. You're a murderer if you've ever thought that owning a gun is a cool thing. And the right is like, we should never talk about gun control. Trust us, we did the math. Where is... I always joke about the closeness of the Venn diagrams, right? These fucking spots on the Venn diagram might as well be the North and South Pole. That is how far away they are from each other. Now, I think that there is something that we could be talking about. And in reality, what we need to do, in my opinion, and this is not just about gun control, but is to at least understand, to rationalize the people who have different opinions from you as humans with fears, to use empathy. And I see all too often people saying, well, the other side should use empathy, not me. If they used empathy, I'm already using empathy. I'm already using all the empathy I can. Watch me. Look at me. I'm so empathetic. Those guys are the assholes. Why don't you yell at them? Because on the right, best I can tell, the fear is that any little thing that happens will lead to more things. And that any tiny ban on guns or gun rights will be used as the hammer to further confiscate guns. Now, I personally think that this is probably a little overblown. A little bit. Don't shoot me, gun folks. Hold your fire. A little overblown. But that is the fear. And on the other side, there is the very, very real, I hate it when I open up my iPad and the first thing that it says is people were murdered by guns. So they don't want that to happen. And they want to take steps to prevent it. I don't think that there is any kind of obstacle to saying, okay, let's just look at certain things and maybe there's a give back we can do to further enshrine the rights of certain kinds of gun ownership. And instead, to be honest, here's what's bothered me the most about this. I just see fatalism. I see such tremendous fatalism. And I don't even just mean in people. I mean in politicians. And it's a real disheartening thing to me to just watch people say, well, nothing happened after Newtown. Nothing will ever happen ever again. Cool. That's awesome. That's an awesome statement. We should all shove our heads in the sand. I mean, what is smearing your fatalism on your face and then growling at your neighbor really do? Honestly. And on the left, I see this, like, oh, the NRA. And listen, the NRA is a powerful lobby in this country. And yes, the NRA has probably gone further in terms of their advocacy than even the opinions of most gun owners. Most gun owners, by opinion polls, are for more smaller legislation than the NRA. The NRA fights vigorously on every front. Well, then, if we're to understand that the NRA isn't going to go away tomorrow, if we are to understand that the NRA is a political force for which we have to deal with, then why are we just looking at it as if we could make it go away if we just close our eyes and yell? Face facts. It's something that everybody has to deal with. And if you want any kind of gun control in this country, then it has to, at the very least, come with understanding that the NRA isn't going away and that they need to be placated on some level to do anything, or they need to be broken. And if they are going to be broken, I don't think that you are going to do that by simple righteous indignity. They would need to be marginalized politically. There's one more thing that I do want to point out, and I haven't seen it pointed out a lot, although I know that there are elements of the right that fear it. Donald Trump is the only hope the left has for gun control. I'm going to repeat that for you one more time so you might... In fact, you want to know what? Go ahead and clip this out. Last time I told y'all to clip something out, I said that Scaramucci was going to get fired within the month. And it turns out I was too conservative. He got fired within the week. So clip this out right now. I'm going to say it for everybody. Donald Trump is the left's only hope for gun control. Here's why. When people talk about the NRA, here's what they talk about. The fact that the NRA gives a lot of money to a lot of candidates. Donald Trump is not going to run for any other office. Donald Trump has very, very little interest in being any kind of kingmaker beyond his Twitter account. He can do that for free. Donald Trump has been all too willing to buck the establishment and Republican orthodoxy. Donald Trump has shown that even if just to spite the Republican establishment, which we are going to get into a little bit later today, he has a lot of reason to spite. He will make deals with people across the aisle, even if it means pissing off his base, even if it means becoming Amnesty Don for 5 minutes. And I'm seeing a lot of people in this chat right now that are telling me reasons why it can't happen. He won't get as many cheers at his rallies, so he's not going to do it. Dems won't take the chance with Donald Trump to pass gun control, though, because they're more worried about gaining seats in the midterms. Okay, these are all very good reasons why a sitting Republican president would not pass gun control measures. All right? Everybody knows that he died at Little Bighorn. What this premise presupposes is maybe he didn't. Tweet me if you get that reference. I know it's not going to happen, okay? This is their only hope, and here's why. Donald Trump has had an evolving view on gun laws. He's got a New York Republicans view on gun laws. He's got a Rudy Giuliani view on gun laws, which is to say, not exactly Deep Woods, Alabama view on gun laws. So let me ask you this. Would Donald Trump pass the bare minimum of common sense gun legislation? Would he pass the bare minimum if it meant full funding for his wall? Would he be able to get through the NRA a bare minimum on gun control if it meant he was that much tougher, if he got the Democrats to bend the knee on immigration? That's a question. Now, you may think I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, because it was not but minutes after all this broke on Monday It was not minutes after that. By the way, wait a minute. Sidon says not a chance. Again, come on. I am talking about a sliver of light in a sea of blackness. We don't need any help pointing out the fact that this is an unlikely scenario. I'm saying it's more likely with Donald Trump than any sitting Republican president before and likely after. Because I don't think that we are going to get a wild card like Donald Trump in the White House for another several decades, if ever, on this level. He was a black swan. Somebody that had a perfect storm to get into the White House. So, if there is anybody that would make this deal, it's somebody that has already changed their mind on this issue before, has shown the ability to go across the aisle, and does not give a fuck about his future, because he ain't got no future. He's not running for any other offices, and he is not going to be in any way a part of the Republican leadership going forward. So therefore, he does not actually give a fuck if he pisses off the NRA, except to say that maybe they will fund him less going forward. But even then, even if he dings them now, he will still be the more pro-gun candidate when it comes to the next election. So yes, I am establishing what is referred to in gambling as a value bet. A long shot for which would pay off more because you are identifying a trend. And again, here's what I'm saying. Everybody who's like, never going to happen, never going to happen, never going to happen. You know who thinks it might happen? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Enough that he had really, really, really harsh words to warn him against not doing it. Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon tells Mike Allen of Axios the day after this happens that if Donald Trump does anything on gun control, it's over. It's all over. That Breitbart will become an anti-Trump website. So, before we understand that makes it less likely that he will do something, understand this. He has already pissed him off once. We already got Amnesty Don. But if Steve Bannon is going out of his way to illustrate the consequences of what happens if Donald Trump does it, what does that say to you about how unlikely he thinks it is? So, that's all I'm saying. I mean, listen, I get it. I get it. All of you guys are on the other side of this. I am watching the chat right now. You guys are lighting me up. No way. No way. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying it's the Democrats' only shot. If they are going to do anything on gun control. And it has to happen soon. Trump already made mention that there might come a time where we have to look at gun laws. That happened this week. This week. So, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Listen, I said to clip it out. We'll see where this clip goes. Last clip came true within a week. Last clip came true within a week. All I'm saying, Justin R. Young, if and when this happens, this is less likely than the Scaramucci thing. I gave Scaramucci 100% chance of getting fired. This is going to be less than that. All right. Rex Tillerson is the Secretary of State. Rex Tillerson, according to who initially reported this? I pulled the Axios story. NBC News. That is Carol E. Lee, Kirsten Welkner, Stephanie Ruhle, and Daphna Linzer published a report today wherein they said that Rex Tillerson was very, very mad at Donald Trump. Let's just read the first couple paragraphs of this. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was on the verge of resigning this past summer amid mounting policy disputes and clashes with the White House, according to senior administration officials who were aware of the situation at the time. The tensions came to a head around the time that President Donald Trump delivered a politicized speech in late July to the Boy Scouts of America, an organization Tillerson once led. Just days earlier, Tillerson had openly disparaged the president, referring to him as a moron after a July 20th meeting at the Pentagon with members of Trump's national security team and cabinet officials, according to 3 officials familiar with the incident. Apparently, also, I believe it was one of these. I think Kirsten Welker. Welker, who made a point to say that this is a mischaracterization of his reporting. Tillerson did not call Trump a moron. He called him a fucking moron. So there's that. Today, in an unscheduled statement to reporters, Tillerson directly addressed that version of events, saying, "I have never considered leaving my post. He praised Donald Trump's foreign policy agenda, saying he was part of a team to make America great again, but he did not deny calling the president a moron, saying, I'm not going to deal with petty stuff like this. This is very funny to talk about because it's inner office squabbling, right? It's fun. Called him a fucking moron. That's great. Is anybody surprised? Honestly. Anybody? Anybody surprised? This guy was a CEO of a major company. A major company. You know what that means? He gets to do whatever he wants. Whenever he wants. And so now all of a sudden, he is at not only the constraints of being a public servant, but also he has to deal with the fact that his direct superior is doing whatever the fuck he wants and is constantly contradicting him and is not listening to him. So does it strike anybody as shocking that he would call President Trump a fucking moron? It doesn't to me. Not at all. Does it strike me that he would tell people around him that he was close to quitting? No. Do me a favor. Everybody in the chat room right now. How many times have you talked to people at your work who have told you they were going to quit and then either A, never quit, or B, quit years afterward? Like, that's happened to me many times. In fact, it might have been at every job I've ever been in. There's been somebody that has come up to me and told me that they were going to quit and then never quit. So I mean, we're getting, by and large, for those audio listening, a lot of hands daily. Some people said not in my experience. I usually quit when I say I do. Sure. That is JSC315. But there we go. I mean, I don't know. This is always one of those things. It's just it's a silly story, but I like it. I like, number one, you guys know I love the silly stories, and anytime that the president gets called a fucking moron and then he has to go out and spin it, it's always a great time for me, personally. I just like it. All right, before we get into stuff that's outside of the White House, let's finish this up. Politico's got two stories, and to me, they're one story. It is about the civil war going on with the Republicans. See, there's two types of Republicans. There's the establishment, and then there's trumpeteers. The establishment, the things are starting to come to a head, effectively. First things first, we have this story from Politico. More GOP senators are willing to tell Trump to take a hike. An increased number of Republicans have nothing to lose in crossing the president and Mitch McConnell, a warning sign for tax reform. There is a growing faction inside the Senate Republican Conference, and it looks like bad news for Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. The Devil May Care caucus. Unbeholden to Republican orthodoxy and freed from the burdens of imminent re-election campaigns, more GOP senators are flexing their independence in the aftermath of the party's failed effort to repeal Obamacare. Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee is the latest addition to the ranks. Days after announcing he would not seek re-election in 2018, he threatened to buck Republicans on tax reform and stood by his earlier criticism of Trump as lacking the stability or competence to be president. He joins GOP contrarians John McCain, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Rand Paul, and Kevin Bacon in a group that's willing to vote a principle over party line, even if it means sinking some of the party's cherished agenda items. And by the way, Roy Moore may be next. Now, he's a bit of a overlap on our Venn diagram here because a lot of these guys are critical of the president. And they are more likely to go along with things that are popular nationally even if it means critical or harmful to the president's agenda. So let's go ahead and compare that, if you will, with this other story from Politico today. Trump loyalists lose patience with congressional Russia probes. This is another Politico story. Loyalists of President Donald Trump are losing patience with the Republican leaders over a wide-ranging Russia probe creeping into his inner circle, saying House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell have allowed the investigation to hobble the White House for months. Now, there's some great quotes in here. And effectively, the point of this article is to say that there's a time and a place for these investigations, but we didn't need 3 of them, and they got to start wrapping up. Like, start playing the music at the award ceremony, because these guys need to start to wrap it up. Show what they got. Let's move on. Now, it's funny because both of these stories, despite the fact that I do think that they are more opposed to each other than the writing of either of these articles are giving them credit for, like, they both hate Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. They cannot buy a break here. But here we go. There's a great quote about these Russia probes. Here we go. All right. This is from J.T. Spray, a Republican National Committeeman from Nebraska. People think it's crazy. I think your average person in Nebraska has concluded that there is nothing there, referring to the Trump-Russia stuff. That's certainly my conclusion. There's so many phantoms, and now we learn about Facebook and Google. I think we're just swinging at air. The big duh is that the Russians are fucking with us on Facebook. Any 9-year-old kid would figure that out. All right. I need you guys, anybody with a 9-year-old kid in this audience, I need you to ask your 9-year-old kid whether or not it's clear to them that the Russians are effing with us on Facebook. Phrase that however you need to. I'm not saying you got to curse at your kid. I'm just saying I need PX3 9-year-olds to weigh in on whether or not this is as clear as J.L. Spray, a Republican National Committeeman from Nebraska, has laid it out to be. I'll say this. I do think that it's clear that the Russians are fucking with us on Facebook. And by the way, I don't think that that's either A, new, or B, going away. Before we go any further, the one thing that I don't have on my run sheet, but I do want to talk about is the recovery efforts in Puerto Rico. There are many great charities. I donated to one last week, Unidos por Puerto Rico. You can go to unidosporpuertorico.com/en is the English language site. Please go ahead and toss a few bucks. Toss a few bucks to Puerto Rico the way that our president tosses paper towel rolls. What the fuck? That's, I don't know. That's one of those things where it's like, all right, I don't know how much stuff was there. You know, like, it seems, I don't know. My initial impression is like, if there's enough for everybody to get everything and he was just kind of playing around with the crowd, we have no idea what his relationship to the crowd was before. Immediately we walk in and we read about or we see Donald Trump kind of doing that, and we're like, oh my God, look at this asshole. So I don't know. I mean, it was very funny. It was a very funny visual, but I don't necessarily want to rake him over the coals. I would rather tell everybody to go ahead and donate to Unidos por Puerto Rico now, if you can. Give him money. It's good. I will rake Donald Trump over the coals for attacking the San Juan mayor. I don't care what the fuck the San Juan mayor says about you. You need to shut the fuck up. You need to be quiet. She is dealing with a lot. And whether or not you believe she is talking out of school on something, man, it's not a good look. And by the way, it's showing in his approval numbers. He actually had his approval numbers rise after Harvey and Irma, but he has seen them fall, or at least they would be predicted to fall, based on how he is handling Puerto Rico, which people are not a fan of. So, again, Unidos por Puerto Rico.com/en if you don't speak the Spanish like I don't. So just go ahead and check that out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like it's time. I feel like we've talked a lot about important issues. We've all, we've tried to hash out important political issues, and now it's time to maybe cut loose a little bit. Yeah, maybe it's time that we head down to old sweet home, Alabama. What do you say? Oh, here we go. Wrong one. Oh, yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to get into that rented limo, because we're taking you beyond the velvet rope and letting loose the carnal pleasures of surveys. Spritz that axe from the bathroom attendant, break down that 60 into ones, and pay attention to the demographic shifts, because this is the... Get on the floor if you got that booty. This is a pole dance from JMC Analytics. It is taken from September 30th to October 1st with a sample size of 500 likely voters. The margin of error is 4.4%. Coming up first to the stage, let's go ahead and get a real warm round of applause. All right, do you want to know what, guys? This segment is too important. This segment's too important. We're going to go back. Hopefully now we are at our check. All right. This is your pole dance. Why am I red lighting? Yeah, I'm breaking up here. That's fine. Okay. So we're actually going to go back. We're going to go back. We're going to do this one over. Hey, YouTube, you get to see how the sausage is made. Look at that. All right. Well, I mean, enough talking about how we do the show. What do you... Oh, Jesus. How would you go? Get away from that. Nip tuck that while we're here. Nip tuck that while we're here. And here we go. The Spanish, like I don't. So just go ahead and check that out. All right. Oh, actually, no. You want to know what? We can't do this yet. We can't do the pole dance yet. We have to talk about Catalan. God damn it. I can't hear the soundboard. The soundboard's not playing anymore. All right. Let's go back here. We have to talk about Catalan. I can't believe I almost forgot about Catalan. All right. Hold on. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. All right. They were the young Americans. Young Americans. Young Americans. Hey, one more thing. Speaking of Spanish. Speaking of that Spanish. We have a big thing happening out there in Spain, and that is the Catalan independence controversy. Last week they tried to take a vote. If you are not familiar with these images, man, you got to take a look at them. They are fucking insane. Pro-independence parties. Well, here's the news today. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Pro-independence parties seek Monday vote on independence. So they're going to try to vote again. This is after the Spanish prime minister used brute force to stop people from voting. The vote of people who were able to get through came back overwhelming in favor of independence. You want to know what? Let's actually do something, because I feel like this is the only show that's going to act how dumb it is. Let's go ahead and take a look. I don't know what the fuck Catalonia is, for the record. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just go ahead and take a look right now at where Catalonia is on the map. This is always a good place to start. So here we go. If you look at Spain, Catalonia is in the top right-hand corner of Spain and includes Barcelona, right there in the middle on the sea, facing, what is this? What is that body of water? Whatever the body of water that Spain borders on the east. It also borders France. So Catalonia leaving Spain would, aside from taking away its capital, right, would be huge. Would be gigantic. This would be catastrophic for Spain to lose them. And yet, Catalonia has its own culture, as I am educating myself and reading about it. It's got its own language, and they want to be free. Also, that is the Mediterranean. Look how smart I am. The water of body of water that borders Spain on the east. So the issue here is that the Europe has basically seen a gigantic influx in countries that want to be independent. Not only did they watch the UK walk out the door with Brexit, but prior to that, Scotland tried to declare independence from the United Kingdom. Now Catalonia is trying to do it from Spain. The problem is, at a certain point, this is a major problem for the European Union, because there is no guarantee on how an independent Catalonia would want to deal with the European Union, or how much economic disruption that would cause anything, all the rest of it. I mean, I think I read today, well, I think it was in here, that Spain is the fourth largest economy inside the Eurozone. And by the way, the problem with the European Union is that the rich countries are subsidizing the less economically responsible countries. And, once is a wacky thing that happened over a drunken weekend. Brexit is a lot bigger. If Catalonia successfully declares independence, now I'll tell you what, Europe is frisky these days. Let's go ahead and read from this Reuters news story. Catalonia moves to declare independence from Spain on Monday. Catalonia will move on Monday to declare independence from Spain. Or wait, is Madrid the capital of Spain or Barcelona? Somebody help me out. I think it's probably Madrid. The European Union nears a rupture that threatens the foundations of its young democracy. Mireia Boya, a Catalan lawmaker from the pro-independence Popular Unity candidacy party, said on Twitter that a declaration of independence would follow a parliamentary session on Monday to evaluate the results of an October 1st vote to break away. We know that there may be disbarments, arrests, but we are prepared, and in no case will it be stopped. Catalan President Carles Puigdemont, he's always great, said earlier that he would ask the region's parliament to declare independence following the poll, which Spain's government and constitutional court say was illegal and in which only a minority of Catalans voted. Quote, "This will probably finish once we got the votes in from abroad at the end of the week, and therefore we shall probably act over the weekend or early next week." In an interview with a German newspaper, Puigdemont said he already felt like the president of a free country where millions of people have already made an important decision. He said the Madrid government's refusal to negotiate had left Catalonia no other way other than to declare independence, and he accused it of authoritarianism. Quote, "The Spanish government is letting political opponents be arrested. It is influencing media and blocking internet sites. We are under observation day and night. In what is that other than an authoritarian state?" Spicy. Spain was only restored to a democracy following the death in 1979 of military dictator Francisco Franco, under which the Catalan language and traditions were suppressed. The EU executive called again on Wednesday for the Spanish government and Catalan authorities to open a dialogue. "It's time to talk," the European Commissioner's deputy head, Frans Timmermans, told the European Parliament. Something tells me that it might be a little late to talk. Might be just a little bit late to talk. Oh man, this is tell you what, I am this is a crazy situation, but I am very, very, very excited to watch it unfold. I'm also excited to get this done. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the most exciting part of the Politicsx program. It is where we ask you to go ahead and get inside the rented limo, because we're taking data beyond its velvet ropes and letting loose into the carnal pleasure of surveys. Spritz that axe from the bathroom attendant. break down that $60 into ones and pay attention to the demographic shifts, because this is a PX3.
Get on the floor if you got that booty.
This is a JMC Analytics poll for September 30th to October 1st with 500 likely voters, a margin of error of 4.4%. It is for the Alabama Senate seat vacated by Jeff Sessions. Welcoming first to the stage, he is a Democrat trying to ride that donkey to D.C. With 40% of the vote, let's get a big round of applause for Doug Jones. But your headliner, he is a Republican with 48% of the vote. He is the favorite son of Breitbart.com, Judge That is an 8-point spread in favor of Judge Roy Moore. There we go. Judge Roy Moore ahead. I think he's probably going to cruise to this. Obviously, the demographic's not favorable for Democrats in Alabama, and doesn't look like people are angry at the America First wing of the Republican Party enough to vote against them. Oh, well. We will keep an eye on that, as we do all the polls. If you got a good poll, go ahead and send it to us. theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Again, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. But first, your emails. Yeah, folks, we go ahead and read your emails right here on this show, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Unsurprisingly, we have gotten a lot on Vegas. Sean writes, thank you for collecting all the monologues about Vegas. I propose that there be a newer second response, mainly on the left. The people who used to care about mass shootings and want to see change were even hopeful for change. But those people now just seem to have stopped caring or have given up putting effort into the debate. I think the NPR Politics podcast or 538 Politics kind of mentioned this on their episodes early this week. I gave up hope for any change after Sandy Hook. I hope to hear a bit tomorrow about Catalonia. I wonder if the Basque region will follow suit if things turn out well for Catalonia. What if Andorra annexed Catalonia? Thanks for the podcast. I really enjoy the daily Patreon Facebook updates. Well, thank you so much, Sean. Paul writes, I apologize in advance for asking you an unfair question. I just saw the news out of Las Vegas, and I am gobsmacked. As an American abroad, the gun culture in the U.S. and the response to all these mass shootings is perhaps the most difficult thing to explain about my home country. people invoke Dunblane in the UK or Port Arthur in Australia and ask why the US hasn't had any similar unifying moment when it comes to guns. I can't give them a good answer. What I don't get is this. Why are we so stuck as a nation on this issue? It's not as though anyone thinks such shooting are a good thing, and the image of libertarians throwing up their hands and saying that this is all the price of freedom is a lazy liberal straw man. I get that people are wary of the government expanding its powers, even in the name of saving lives. Power creep by the state does tend to be a one-way street. But after all this, how is there no substantive reforms, and the net effect is that gun laws have become looser? Almost as frustrating is how predictable the media cycles that will be to follow. All be on team saving lives on one side of the TV and team constitutional freedom will be on the other, yelling talking points past each other, all while the status quo remains firmly intact, with the NRA's imprimatur. I'd like to think that the matter is deeper and more nuanced than that, but I'm having a heck of a time formulating that argument. All right. So I think that it is a straw man just to point at the NRA and say that they are this unbeatable machine or that they are the root of all evil. I think that the biggest unsaid part of this is the idea that the fix is hard. It's very hard. For anybody that wants to talk about it being very, very easy, let me just put it this way. Let's look at a full gun buyback, ban of sales problem or a solution, right? Do yourself a favor when we talk about this kind of stuff. We tend to make the straw man who is clinging to his guns the redneck who believes in the Second Amendment and votes Republican, right? But when we look at gun violence, there's a lot of gun violence in the inner cities. There's a lot of gun violence done by black people. And this is not me going, full Rush Limbaugh and suggesting that this is their fault. We get to this situation by many societal forces. But this is me saying, who do you think that solution's going to impact? Who do you think that solution is going to disproportionately affect? Ask yourself that question. Now, will it make us safer? Well, there's a larger question. If you look at these other situations in UK and in Australia, while I think that they are certainly something that we need to understand, the United States is a very big country. It is a much different problem to solve. So I think that the largest reason why we don't see anything is because the solutions are hard. And nobody really wants to put their face in that buzzsaw. Number two, I agree with you, Paul. I think that there's not a lot of substantive conversation. Sidon says, I think that's a tautology. It's hard because we say it's hard. Yeah. It's hard because we say it's hard. It doesn't mean it's not also hard. It doesn't mean that, there are hard problems to solve in a country this big. It's a big country. A lot of people. Spread out over a gigantic swath of land. We have regional governments to consider as well. So it's. I don't think that there is a light switch solution to this. Doesn't mean we can't solve it. And again, I'm not saying that this is impossible. The question was, why don't we try more often? And that is my explanation for that. Waffleophagus wrote me a 7,000 word book because he really likes me editing down his work. I'm going to start sending Waffleophagus bills for being his editor if he wants to get stuff on here. Waffle, I'm just saying, I'm cool reading everything you want to send me. Just also write what you want read. Just write what you want read. Just give me a little thing that you want read, and I will read that. Otherwise, I have to edit it for you. And that's what I did. He wrote about how much he has read about it and how much this asshole who shot everybody up used legal guns and legal, for now, modifications. And the fact that he is a Second Amendment proponent. And then he throws in the big fat but. But that doesn't change the fact that this happened and was done with what was essentially fully automatic weapons, even if they were a workaround to get that way. I've always supported the idea of a Second Amendment, not for the idea that we have the rights to guns to hunt or even to protect ourselves from the bad guy, but what it was actually there for, to protect ourselves from an oppressive government. I think it stands true today, especially when we see people in power abusing their position so often. That said, when the Second Amendment was written, the difference between a soldier and a farmer was a gun. That was it. Today, even the best firearms available to me won't do shit against a Predator drone. So that purpose of the amendment has kind of outlived its use. So many people say the gun control doesn't work, but you look at Australia, the UK, dozens of other countries where mass shootings just don't happen since they've done some form of heavy regulation. It's hard to look at these facts and say it doesn't work. Even harder since the NRA lobbied for it to be illegal for the U.S. government to do studies on gun violence. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I love the principle of the Second Amendment. I think it's a just amendment to have. But when its practical use is near zero and it's costing lives, it's really got me thinking about it. I say this as a person who owns a pistol and still fully intends to buy an AR-15 before the end of the year. Vegas made me sick. And if we have the means to stop it from happening again, I think we should seriously do it. And then in non-Vegas news, we got Dr. Whiskey, who says, just listening to the latest PX3 show, and I heard you give an update on Kid Rock's campaign. Stopped into my favorite watering hole here in Nashville, Santa's Pub, and was informed by the bartender that Kid Rock has his own beer. It's badass American lager. The kid has been known to stop in at this dive since he has a place nearby, I believe. Keep on doing God's work, Dr. Whiskey. Well, thank you guys so much. Remember, you can send in your emails to theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Go ahead and let me know what you guys got on your minds. Until next time, remember that music has been provided by Valesco and Trop Killers. You can follow me at Justin R. Young everywhere. And, of course, you can support this show at patreon.com/JURY. Go ahead and do that. And if you back at the $3 level, you get 2 extra podcasts. It's super easy to do, by the way. You don't got to do anything special. If you're listening to this on a podcatcher, then you just add the Patreon RSS feed that you get when you bump up your feed, or actually when you become a Patreon on any level. Add that to your podcatcher, and automatically, not only do you get this the 2 extra shows, you get this show, you get the jury show, you get the Friday hype train, the call-in show I do on Fridays when I'm in town. It is awesome. You get the full experience of what I do on that Patreon. But until next week, folks. No, wait, wrong one again.
Politics, 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 politics.
This is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, wishing you a great week. Hopefully you have a little bit less newsworthy of a week. I will see you guys next week. Peace out.
Politics, yes.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.